You're listening to Rendezvous with the Writer with Bobbi Jean and Jim Bell, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to Rendezvous with the Writer, where readers and writers meet, and story is everything. We're your hosts tonight, Bobbi, Jim Bell. See, we're pre-recording here, in the middle of the afternoon, sometime during the week. Yeah, I'm not used to this.
So, Henry, we're delighted to have you with us. This is Bobbi Jean and Jim Bell, and we have a full house tonight, and we're so happy that you've come along for the ride for episode 155. Jim, who do we have with us tonight?
We have a full house.
We do.
We have Henry C. Park of True West Magazine.
Yeah.
Hey.
And here he is, True West Magazine, and the author of The Greatest Westerns Ever Made and the people who made them. And yes, and you've got True West. Who else is with us?
We have Rod Miller, and we have Michael Norman, and we have their book, Shiny Spurs and Silver Medallion and Gold Medallion.
Gold medallion.
Yeah, what's the matter with me?
We are live. We're so delighted to have all three of you with us tonight. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So first off, Henry, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from beautiful downtown Brooklyn.
All right.
All right, back on the East Coast. And let's
Thank
see,
you.
Mr. Rod Miller, where are you joining us from?
I'm in Utah, which is just about 60 miles from the land of Goshen, where I grew up.
Okay.
Oh, very good.
Welcome,
Very good.
welcome. And Michael Norman, where are you joining us from tonight?
Well, former Utahn and presently living in beautiful Lake Chapala, Mexico. Lake Chapala is Mexico's largest freshwater lake, some 35 miles long, and we're in the Sierra Madre Mountains.
Oh my goodness, we're
Very
like
good.
coast to coast and international.
Yeah, we are.
That's really fun. So let's
Yeah.
see. We want to start off with Henry's.
Yeah.
Henry Park joins us the first Thursday of every month. And he is the film editor for True West Magazine, as well as a published author. And he knows everything there is to know about what's going on in Western film and TV. So, Henry, take it away.
All right. Well, there's no doubt that the number one piece of Western news that I have for you is that Elkhorn season 2 is about to start. And the irony is that I mean about to start right now. That's Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so I hope you've T-voted. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, Elkhorn is an original Western series on the INSP channel about Teddy Roosevelt's early cowboy years. Elkhorn is the name of the ranch he built in Medora in the North Dakota Badlands. He had an up-and-coming political career in New York City as a reformer, but when his wife and mother tragically died on the same night, in 1884, he pretty much lost his interest in life. He headed out to Medora to become a cattleman, and the challenges of that life turned him into the man that became our 26th president. There are some liberties taken for dramatic purposes, of course, but overall the history is excellent, and it's a very entertaining Western series. And if you want to catch up on season 1, it's streaming on Prime, Tubi, and Plex. I just got back from 5 days in Medora, because INSP decided to premiere the opener of the new season in the real town where the story took place. And if you love American history, and especially Teddy Roosevelt, I cannot recommend it too highly. I got to travel with the cast to the real locations that have been recreated in Acton, California, and it's amazing how accurate some of those sets are. Watching Mason Beals, who plays TR, and Jeff Dujardin and Ashton Selecki, who play the Marquis de Moraes and his wife Medora, the villains of the piece, strolling through the actual Marquis' chateau, which is wonderfully preserved by the National Park Service, was kind of mind-blowing. Oh, and yes, the town is named for the Marquis' bride, Medora. I think you're legally required to be a history buff to live there, and the populace, all 160 people, are just thrilled with the show and love taking part in the premiere. We also got a tour of a remarkable work in progress, the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, which will open on the 4th of July, 2026. Anyone know which was the first presidential library? Anybody? I had no idea. I Googled it. I would not have guessed that it would be Rutherford B. Hayes, our 19th president. But he was I'm sorry?
No,
I just commented on what you commented on.
Yeah. He wouldn't have been my natural guess. And he was a one-off. The presidential library system was created in 1939 for Teddy's cousin, FDR. But I think this is the first time they've gone back to honor a great president who was missed. And speaking of presidential libraries, have you heard about the new show that's coming to the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library this month? On October 18th. Yes, good. Cowboys, History, and Hollywood will open a look at cowboy fact and fiction. There will be dozens of historic guns and saddles and hats, items from classic westerns of all eras. Clint Eastwood is loaning things, as are the estates of John Wayne and, of course, President Reagan, including the Jeep he used to drive around his ranch with. Props and costumes from Gunsmoke to Back to the Future 3, Yellowstone. They'll have Roy Rogers and Dale Evans' horse and dog. Okay, who can name who they are?
Trigger and Buttermilk and Trigger, yes, and Bullet.
Excellent. Okay, and it should be a wonderful show, and it will continue into April of next year. So if you're going to be in Southern California, make sure you see the Gene Autry Museum and the Reagan Presidential Library. And now a story about a new Civil War miniseries. So I already love it. But wait, there's more to love. It's from Republic Pictures. The folks that brought you Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and everyone. Republic is now a unit of Paramount. But this is coming not to Paramount Plus, but to Amazon next year. It's produced by Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman. It's called The Gray House, based on fact about 3 women spies for Abraham Lincoln. It stars Mary Louise Parker, Daisy Head, Amethyst Davis, and Ben Vereen. Oh, and Paul Anderson, who did 3 Westerns in a row, The Revenant, Brimstone, and Hostiles. The 3 credited writers are the twice Oscar-nominated John Sayles and Daryl Fetty and Leslie Grief, who co-wrote Texas Rising and co-produced Hatfields and McCoys with Costner. Now, please check out the September-October issue of True West, where you can read my article, A Century of Disenrollment, my look at Pretendians, showbiz folks whose American Indian heritage is fake, and my interview with Ann Hillerman about Dark Winds and her 10th Gian Lee novel. My newest article for the INSP blog is What TV and Movies Get Right and Wrong About Cowboys. And today I posted a new Henry's Western Roundup featuring the red carpet for for Elkhorn, its premiere, my review of Ron Howard's Eden, and my interview with Audie Murphy's last leading lady, Anne Randall of A Time for Dying. And you can read all about this and so much more at henryswesternroundup.blogspot.com.
Oh, Henry.
Very good.
Wow, you had a lot to cover.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask Rod or Michael, do either of you have a question or a comment for Henry? You don't have to, but if you do, this is a good time to do it.
Well, my comment would be he, I think, is an awfully busy fellow.
Yeah, not a question really, but a comment that I think it's kind of unfortunate that when Roosevelt and his ranch suffered through the big die-up, he just kind of walked away from the whole thing. And that's kind of sad because there was a gentleman named Weibo who used that tragedy to build up his kingdom, and he came out of it in great shape and grew a huge cattle operation in North Dakota and Montana and into Wyoming. It's unfortunate that Roosevelt didn't stick with that.
However, and I see absolutely what you mean, but if he hadn't sort of crashed and burned, we might not have had him for president. He'd have been too busy raising.
Yeah.
That's true, probably. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is so much fun. We are going to step away and take a very short break and listen to a news from one of our sponsors, Blue Cottage Agency and Clicks by Madison. Are you a writer? Maybe you'd like to increase your social media presence, refresh your website, or like we just did, launch a web page or a landing page or website. Our sponsors, Blue Cottage Agency and Clicks by Madison, are standing by to assist you. Here's exciting news, and why not take advantage of it? When we come back, we'll be talking with Rod and Michael and more with Henry. Don't go away. Authors, welcome home. Every author needs a website, a home base for their brand. Professionally showcase your books and brand with a custom website landing page starting at $369. BlueBookshelf.com. It's a great feeling to be home. Contact the Blue Cottage team today to get started.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Rendezvous with the Writer. We have a house full today. Henry C. Parker, True West Magazine, Rod Miller, Michael Norman. They're going to be talking about Butterbuck shiny spurs and gold medallions. And without further ado, we got a couple of bios I got to get read here. Okay, Rod Miller. Rod Miller writes fiction, history, poetry, and magazine articles about the American West people and places. He is the author of 20 novels to date, 3 collections of short stories, 4 collections of poetry, 4 books of history, as well as numerous magazine articles. Miller is a recipient of 4 Western Writers of America Spirit Awards and Peacemaker Awards. Wow. And Michael Norman is the author of 5 murder mysteries, and he recently has written nearly a dozen short stories, and several of these are Will Rogers Medallion winners. And A Death of Crows won the 2023 Longhorn Prize for Saddlebag Dispatches magazine for the best Western short story. Very good. I want to ask a couple quick questions. Regarding things that are not in the bio, Rod, you were on a college rodeo team, so you're kind of an expert there. What was your specialty?
Well, I was a bareback rider for the Utah State University team.
Very good.
Bareback.
Yeah. And Michael, you were in law enforcement for a long time, all right?
Well, it was for about 7 years, and I just kept getting more college degrees and ended up assuming a university faculty position in criminology and criminal justice.
Very good. Now, this question, what got you and your wife to Mexico to retire there to live?
Well, we looked around, and we had been in Utah together over 40 years and decided we had one more adventure left in us.
Okay, there you go.
So we had checked around, and Lake Chapala seemed to, we're not ocean people, so I know all the Cabo and Puerto Vallarta, we're kind of mountain people. And when we discovered Lake Chapala, came down and visited, we said, let's go here. So 2.5 years later, so far, so good.
Wow.
All right.
So how did you two meet, Rod and Michael? How did you two meet?
You want to take it, Rod?
Yeah, we were both at a writers' conference. We were both presenters at a writers' conference down in southern Utah. And so we just kind of got together there and became a little bit acquainted. And then over time, we kept in contact. And talked to each other, went to meals a few times, and just got to become friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I might add, can I add something to that?
Of course.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, Rod, when I decided to kind of leave the mystery writing field behind, although I'd written a couple of my mysteries are contemporary Western stories, Rod, when I decided to move to Western writing, I needed kind of a mentor, and Rod became that. We'd had this acquaintanceship, and I kind of leaned on Rod when I wrote my very first short story, Lozen's War. He critiqued it for me and has been very helpful and supportive ever since. I didn't know anything about Saddlebag Dispatches magazine until Rod mentioned it to me, and they've been very good to me as well.
Yes, one of the benefits of writer groups, right, is getting to know your fellow members. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, this collection, shiny spurs and gold medallions, and what a delight for the reader. Henry, would you agree? Just
yes.
wonderful, wonderful stories. Um, I have a couple of questions, and one is you both also have written, full-length books. So what's kind of a difference, or what do you have to think about differently when you write a short story than when you write a novel?
Well, obviously, the time frame is considerably different. I think to write anything, you have to be willing to sit in a chair for long periods of time. But a short story, you get an idea and you can flesh it out fairly quickly and write the story and then go back and do your revisions and rewriting and then move on to something else. Where with a novel, it's a fairly big commitment. The process, I think, for me at least, is about the same, but the time commitment is different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What I would add to that is I always thought of the novel as a marathon and a short story more of a sprint. And you need an economy of words. You like the novel, though, you still have to have a plot. There has to be some character development. You still have to focus on a protagonist, hopefully one that people will like and identify with. But it is a different process. I enjoy the freedom it gives me because I can move, as Rod said, between 2007 and 2018, I had 5 murder mysteries book length. And it takes time.
Yeah. Love you singing. You talk about the murder mysteries. 2007. What was that? The Commission you wrote? Is that your first novel?
That was the Commission. Yes, it was. And pardon me.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, the plot centered around, I had served in Utah on the Utah State Parole Board, which is a board that goes into the prisons, meets with inmates, and decides how long they're going to serve and when they're going to be released and under what conditions. So as I neared the end of my academic career, I began to want to write fiction and had an idea that would center around the execution-style murder of the chairman of the State Parole Board. And that's what the Commission's about.
Wow. Oh. So currently, you're both really involved in Western stories. I have this question. Is the Western still relevant today? I would say probably so. And why is that?
Well, I think it's still relevant. I mean, and I think it will stay relevant forever because the story of the West is really the story of America. I mean, there are a lot of unique things about our country, but there is no place in the world that developed like the American West did. And so it's something that our country, in a sense, has hung its hat on for all of these years. And I think it's going to stay that way.
Yeah.
And I would add to that yes, I think the Western is key to American history. And so much happened with the whole notion of manifest destiny and what that meant in a young country that was going from east to west, from shore to shore. But I also think, and I'm reminded here of the late great Elmore Leonard, who gave up writing westerns, I believe in the early 50s. And I think what I've read is he attributed that to, he thought television would be the end of westerns. So what did he turn to? Wow, he became a fantastic mystery author.
Yeah.
Which raises the interesting point, Michael, of why did you do the reverse and switch from mysteries to westerns?
Michael is often backward in what he does.
Okay, next question.
I owe him one for that. For me, it was, and I think I said this, I've said this before, my first love is reading the West. It always was. It wasn't reading mysteries. But when you're a new writer of fiction, there is, I don't know where this old saying came from, but write what you know. And I knew and I know the criminal justice system. I know how it works. I know how prisons operate, how probation and parole, and what police do. So for me, that was a natural starting point in a fiction writing career. Westerns I worried about, the short stories I worried about, could I really write one? I had the novel length experience, but I think I transitioned fairly smoothly with some help from the guy that just insulted me there, Rod.
Mike, reading your stories, you do put chapters in your stories, and that to me as a reader is really interesting. And I find it's helpful to follow the storyline. And your stories aren't necessarily, when we think short, they're not novella length, but when we think short, they're a little longer than what we might initially think as a reader. Oh, that'll be 10 pages, or that'll be something shorter. And you also give us a wonderful author note, at least at the back of each of the ones of yours that I read. And so it feels as a reader, very satisfying. It feels like we're reading. Doesn't it feel like we're reading a book?
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like we're reading a book.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll make one comment on the author's note. I tended to use those when I was telling a story. I fictionalized an event that happened in history. The Losens War story. She transported a pregnant Mescalero Apache woman over several hundred miles of territory where they were hunted by the U.S. cavalry and the Mexican army to get her to Mescalero, New Mexico. And so I only write those author notes. I find that sometimes they need things being put into a perspective that an author's note can help with.
Yeah. Now, this is a question for both of you, but Rod, will go to you first. So that first line, it's true even with books as well, but that first line has to really engage
grab
the reader, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Henry, would you agree? It's like that opening scene or that first line. And Rod, your first lines, when I just kind of for fun went back and just read the first line of every story, you just grab us right away. So talk a little bit. So I asked the question, how do you know when you just nailed it? You've got that first line. How do you know that?
Well, it's funny because that's a subject that I've paid a lot of attention to. In fact, I have a workshop that I do at writers' conferences. I've done it quite a few times about creating effective opening lines. And I think the big thing is that it needs to have a little bit of ambiguity. Something there has to not quite click, not quite make sense. Leave a little gap as if it were a circle, and you leave just a little gap that will draw the reader in. I think if it's too journalistic or too just plain prose, it doesn't have the interest. I think you need to get something that makes the reader ask a question in their mind and want to find the answer.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Mike, you have anything to add to that?
Well, I'm picking up one of my two Western mystery novels. The first one I wrote, book one, was called On Deadly Ground. And these stories are set in southern Utah, very rural. My protagonist is a very unusual kind of police officer. He works for the Bureau of Land Management, and the BLM, of course, manages hundreds of thousands of acres of wilderness throughout the country. This story involved the murder of a very prominent environmental activist, and the story then just revolves around who did it and why. Let me read the first sentence to you. I think this is a pretty good opening sentence. Environmental activist David Greenbrier climbed steadily higher onto the Kaparowitz Plateau, unaware that this would be his last sojourn into Utah's southern wilderness.
I think that demonstrates what I was saying, that the reader reads that and he instantly wants to know, well, why? What's this all about? Mm-hmm. I was talking one time to Elmer Kelton about just writing in general. He was a great gentleman to share his knowledge with anybody. But the opening line of The Good Old Boys is one that Elmer thought was the best opening line he'd ever written. And it's a great line. It says, Huey Calloway had known for the last 6 days that he needed a bath. And, that just so many questions pop up when you read a line like that.
So just to finish this little topic, and then we're going to go to another break. But do you know that line? Do you have to have that line before you continue writing, or do you start somewhere else and then that you have how I'm trying to ask that question? How does it evolve and come to you, or do you just know it and you just write it and you take off?
I think it's that for me. I mean, a lot of times a line will come to me, and that's the genesis of a whole story right there, or even a novel. Playing with words is what I like about writing, and so that's often for me where the whole thing starts.
Yeah. Henry, do you have a question for these gentlemen before we take a break?
Or his thought on writing the first couple lines.
Well, actually, I was going to talk about the first part of the book, if I could, which is in your introduction. You make some very interesting points about the shrinking short story market. And could you speak a little about that?
Well, I'd like to jump in on this one. What I discovered and have discovered is there's a somewhat larger publishing market if you are writing Western nonfiction, like True West. Mm-hmm. I can't submit a fictional piece to True West and many other places. But if you're writing nonfiction Western stories, there are, it seems to me, a larger number of places where you can hunt for a publisher, aside from doing what Rod and I did and putting a collection of our own out there in book form.
Yeah, when I first started seeing if I could be a writer, I was kind of in the tail end of the Western anthologies of short stories. There were quite a few of them being done for several years. And so there were opportunities there. If you go back further, there were lots of magazines that published Western short stories, but those kind of went away. But anthologies were a pretty good opportunity for a while. They're still being done, but not very many of them. And if you hear about them, you're lucky. You usually hear about them when they're published, and by then it's too late. So there aren't a lot of opportunities, certainly not as many as I wish there were, because writing short stories is a lot of fun. It's enjoyable.
An enjoyable reading, yes. We are going to step away just for a moment and tell you about one of the places you can order the books of many of our author guests, including tonight's guest, Henry Park. His book is Where We're Going to Send You, and the book we are going to talk about in greater detail, Shiny Spurs and Gold Medallions, is right there as well. And that is our Out West Shop affiliate page at bookshop.org. Don't go away. There's more when we come back.
Story is everything. Find a great one on Out West Shop's bookshop. Go to outwestshop.com. Find books and CDs on the menu. Choose Shop Out West on bookshop.org. Browse through featured authors on Rendezvous with a Writer. Explore curated book lists and our featured picks. Add in note cards, calendars, and jigsaw puzzles. One-stop shopping for great gifts. Use the search box to find thousands more titles. Make the switch. Your purchase supports us as independent booksellers. That's our story.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Rendezvous with the Writer. We're talking with Henry Park, Rod Miller, Michael Norman, and we're going to get real serious about the book that Bobbi's holding. Shiny Spurs and Gold Medallions. Question is it Ron? Is there a particular story that you'd like to make a couple comments about?
Yeah, I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about Black Joe.
All right.
The origin of that story is kind of an interesting one, I think. I have a good friend and cowboy singer and songwriter named Bren Hill that I'm sure lots of your viewers are aware of. And Bren had the album that Bobbi Joe's showing us, Hike
Mountain Drifter.
Yeah. And I should know that because a poem of mine, Bren, turned into a song and it's on that album. But there's also a song on there called Black Joe. And Black Joe was a renegade kind of Mustang stud that lived out on the desert. And this is true. And he was really territorial and could be violent. And if people or other horses would come onto his territory, he would often attack them. So he's kind of a dangerous animal. And Bran heard the stories about Black Joe from our friend Andy Nelson, who's a cowboy poet and entertainer and radio host on Cal Radio. And Andy's father actually had experience with Black Joe. So Bran wrote this song. I heard the song, and I thought, there's a part of that song about a man, a rancher, and his daughter going out into the desert and being attacked by this horse. And I thought, there's a story I can tell there. And so from there, I just kind of expanded the idea and, built the story around that core. And of course, the two cowboys in the story are not Bren Hill and Andy Nelson. They're Bren Nelson and Andy Hill. I wanted to kind of pay homage to them in some way because it's a great story and I really like it.
Listen, I bet all of us would like to hear Rod sing that song. Could you do that for us, Rod? Give us a few bars.
I can carry a tune with a pack saddle. The story is it won a Western Fictioneers Peacemaker Award for the best short story. And so it ended up in Shiny Spurs and Gold Medallions. And it's also the title story in another collection of my stories, Black Joe and Other Selected Stories, which was unfortunately the last book I was able to publish with 5 stars. So it's a story I really like. It's I think it's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you want to read anything aloud of it?
Yeah, we were talking about opening sentences. I'll read if I can the first paragraph of the story. The dun horse trotted in with flecks of foam floating off its shoulders like snowflakes. Sweat runneled from under the skirts of the empty saddle down the flanks, dripping away with the horse's every footfall. Thin streams of blood glowed red on the left hind leg, and a patch of hide the size of a $5 bill flapped and dangled above, peeled from the thigh. The horse slowed to a walk, favoring the right foreleg, the knee of which showed slight swelling. Stopping at the corral fence, the gelding hung its head between spraddled front legs, sucking air and quaking like an aspen leaf. So that's how the story starts. This riderless horse coming back home to the ranch.
Yeah, riderless horse.
Riderless horse.
Yes. Michael, do you have a story that you would like to kind of feature?
Well, yeah. Let me do a plug for Saddlebag Dispatches magazine. They have sure been good to me. I haven't shopped my fiction around very much because they've taken most of what I've sent them and published it. So my first story was Lozen's War, and I thought I'd read you a little piece out of that. And with Lozen's War, I created a fictional character by the name of Connor Doyle. He was an Irishman, and he had served as a U.S. cavalry scout in the Southwest for over 7 years hunting Apaches. And he is on his way to Rio Doso, New Mexico, having given up the scouting. He has land there for a ranch, and he runs across a situation where a group of scalp hunters are chasing what he believes is 2 Indian women. Well, what he initially thought was 1 pregnant Indian woman, Apache woman, and what he initially believed was probably her male partner. But as the story starts to unfold, he realizes the warrior is in fact a woman. And that woman was Lozen, who was an Apache holy woman, a shaman, a great fighter, never married. A lot of people don't realize she was the younger sister of maybe arguably the most well-respected militarily Apache chief, Chief Victorio. Victoria was her older brother. So in this scene, Connor Doyle decides he needs to help them out. So he races through at night the scalp hunters' camp, scattering their horses. In that process, he gets his horse is shot out from under him. And let me read a little passage of what happens then. Doyle grabbed the carbine and scrambled for cover in the rocks. He'd barely caught his breath when he found himself staring down the barrel of a Sharps carbine carried by a fierce-looking Apache warrior with a streak of white paint running from under one eye, over the bridge of her nose, and under the other eye. If ever he'd seen a look of pure hatred on the face of another, it was staring at him now. She wore the clothing of a male warrior, a yellow headband, a breechclout, a simple cotton tunic shirt, and deerskin moccasins that rose just under the knee. In near panic, Doyle managed to mumble in mixed Spanish, Espanol, and English, "Woman, I am not your enemy." For what seemed like an eternity, the warrior woman stared back without so much as a flinch. Slowly, she lowered the carbine. Turning away, she replied in the same broken English, "All white-eye enemy."
Yes, you want to turn the page and know what happens next.
Yeah.
Do you have a question for our guests?
Well, I want the inspiration, the death of Delgado. Is that based on some serious facts, Rod?
Rod's, yeah, what another great story.
Yeah, that too was built around a real incident. Some of your viewers will remember a gentleman named Colin Sweeten, who was a cowboy poet. from southern Idaho, and he's just was really a well-respected gentleman, and he wrote a story based on a magazine piece, nonfiction, based on an incident that he was familiar with that occurred up in the Malad Valley in Idaho, where a man was digging a well by hand and using a horse to lift the mud and dirt and rocks up out of the bottom of the well. And the well got pretty deep, and the horse spooked for some reason and backed into the hole and fell down the well and wedged on the way down the well, and eventually fell all the way to the bottom and obviously killed the man who was down in the bottom of the well. And that was a true story, as I said, that Colin Sweeten had written for I think Wild West magazine, which is no longer in business. It may have been True West, Henry. I don't remember right off. But I used that incident to build that story. So again, it starts with a core of history, but kind of grows from there.
Mm-hmm.
Henry, did you have a question about one of the stories that you wanted to ask?
I was going to say actually about that particular story, how effective it was, because it is not a premise that a writer sitting around trying to think of what to do a Western about would think of. And it really struck me that, frankly, the terror that I went through reading it. What I was very interested in your reasons for doing the book this way with the two of you. I must tell you, when I first started reading it, I looked at it. It was a collection of stories. Didn't read the introduction. I saw two guys' names on it, and I said, "Oh, these are the guys that edited it." And I start reading. I'm a few stories in before I realized, oh, it's their stories. I thought it was an anthology that you had collected of other people's works, and then I suddenly realized, no, these are the guys, and it's such an interesting approach to publishing it and to getting short stories out there. And I was wondering what inspired you to do that.
Well, it's all our fault. I think actually it was kind of Michael's idea. He's, kind of asked me if there was some way we could do something together. Isn't that right, Michael?
Yeah, we were at a lunch, and I was out, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 short stories, and I just thought all Rod can do is tell me no. And I just said, do you think there'd be an opportunity for the two of us to patch together and boy, we came up with, there's 6 of mine, 9 of Rod's. So 15 stories is actually quite a lot, I think, in a Western short story anthology. So, yeah, and Rod was great. He said, yeah, let's see what we can do. And it kind of fell into place from there.
Yeah, when Michael's stories started winning awards, I think that kind of provided the germ of an idea, that we've written these stories and they're award winners. Now, there are some new stories in the book that haven't won awards yet, we hope. But I thought we could package these as award-winning stories. And so there are stories in there that have won the Western Writers of America Spur Award and Spur Award finalists, Western Fictioneers Peacemaker Awards and finalists, and Michael's won a gold and a bronze medallion from the Will Rogers Medallion Awards for his stories, plus an honor from Saddleback Dispatches for the best short story there. So, the fact that they had received this recognition kind of provided the format in which to put this book together.
Right.
Yeah. How did you determine the order of the stories?
Rod did that.
It's hard to say. I just, I just tried to look for some thread that would kind of tie things together, which wasn't easy because these stories are kind of all over the place. The subjects and the kind of the topics they cover are different. So I just tried to find some thread, and I thought, well, Michael's got this story called A Death of Crows, and I've got this story called The Death of Delgado. There's a connection. And then there's the Hunt for White Dove woman, and there you got White Dove, and gosh, I've got Black Joe. There's a connection. Dragoon Springs Station and Clouds Without Water, so I just tried to find some thread that, it's manufactured, it's, the stories themselves don't have a connection, but the titles just kind of seem to play off each other in an interesting way. So that's how we determined that. It's just happenstance in a way.
Looking at time, hard to believe we have like less than 5 minutes left. So we're going to skip our Out West shop ad. We're just going to say, check out our business, outwestshop.com, because we would much rather talk to the both of you a little bit longer. So let's start with Michael. Are you working on anything new, and how can people find you and follow you and such?
Well, my author website would, in fact, a couple of my short stories are posted on my author website, and that is michaelnormanauthor.com. michaelnormanauthor.com is my website. I have, I belong to fans of Western books and readers and writers of Western books, Roundup, and I do some posting there, and I'm on Facebook.
Yeah. And Rod, where do we find you?
I have a website. In fact, I have two. WriterRodMiller.com has all my books on there with links to various places they can be purchased. And I have a website called RawhideRobinson.com, which is dedicated to a character in a series of books I've written. They're kind of humorous Westerns that are accessible to anybody from junior high to geriatrics. And Rawhide Robinson, he kind of needed a website of his own. And then I do a blog. It's writerrodmillerblogspot.blogspot.com. And I have an author page on Amazon. And so, I'm not too hard to find. I don't do much with social media. I don't really understand it very well, being an old geezer. But I can be found, and the books are out there.
Yeah.
They're also on bookshop.org.
They are. And thank you for the blog you did today promoting this show. Thank you so much. And Henry, what are you working on next, and where can we find and follow you?
Oh gosh, I don't even know what I'm working on next, but where you can find me is, of course, Henry's Western Roundup.blogspot.com. You can find me every issue of True West magazine, and I frequently have articles on the INSP channel's blog. So you can search Henry C. Park and find more than you'd ever want to read there.
Well, this has been so much fun. Jim has a couple quotes.
We get a couple quotes.
Yes, Jim has a couple quotes.
Yeah, the first one is from the short story "The Death of Delgado," and this is by Rob Miller, of course. And this quote is told by the 11-year-old narrator of the story. And he says, "I came face to face with my future the day Christian Delgado rode onto our ranch. At least I hoped. Dreams I had. Delgado was a cowboy." And I think that's the opening line.
Yes.
And The Hunt for White Dove Woman by Michael Norman. Connor Doyle has been tracking Isabel Grant and finds her in the Dead Horse Cantina. When the door opened, Doyle saw a stunningly beautiful woman. She was exactly as the madam had described her, tall, blue-eyed, with long blonde hair that hung to her shoulders. Her skin was a dark copper color, reflecting years of sun exposure. She didn't appear frightened. Instead, she looked combative and defiant.
She's an amazing woman. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being with us today. We sure hope that you enjoyed the time as much as we did. This was episode 155, and it will replay immediately following the original broadcast. And we just want to acknowledge that next week we have a very full house with 4 guests: John Goodwin and Emily Goodwin of Galaxy Press, with author Randon C.J. Bartholomew and illustrator Tremonti Sutcliffe. Their story, award-winning story, ACI, is featured in the newly released L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future, Volume 41, and they are excited that they will be with us next week. So, you have a parting thought?
As we always say, thanks, fellas, and it's always a great day out west.
Keep writing.
And we'll keep
We'll
reading.
keep reading. We'll see you down the trail.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Trails.